All right, welcome to the back office. I'm Dalayna Dillon, the founder and creative director at Signify Marketing, and this is where you get to sit in on real strategy. Each episode, we step inside active businesses and have honest conversations about marketing, growth, leadership, and the decisions behind what is happening. So no one has it fully figured out, but we are building anyways. So today we're sitting down with Josh Juarez, founder of Josh's Snow Shack and the brain behind Courts and Commons, to talk about how a small snow cone shack turned into a beloved Oklahoma brand and how the idea for a completely new kind of community space has been quietly forming for nearly 2 decades. Okay, so Josh, there's a lot that's been going on. You've been around Tulsa. You've been an icon in Tulsa for a while. Sometimes people don't know who's got all the snow shacks. This is Josh from Josh's Snow Shacks. I mean, it's been around for forever. So take us back to 2005. How did Josh's Snow Shack actually start?
I will definitely get into that first. I want to say that was one of those amazing introductions I've ever heard. So you're going to be my new hype person everywhere I go. I do these like probably once a month. So I'm like, you're coming with me. Just hype me up. Be my hype guy. But yeah, Josh Snow Shack 2005. I usually like I have the opportunity often to talk to either, schools of entrepreneurship, whether it's at OSU or TU or even at Metro Christian Academy. And I really love sharing my story with young people because in 2005 I was 19, and which is crazy because when you look at me, I'm only 25 right now. So how do we do this? Yeah, how do we do this? No, and so it was very much like when I created Josh's, it was like a means to an end, I'd say. And that end was I wanted to get married. So me and my girlfriend at the time had been dating. And I told my dad, I was like, I think I want to marry this girl. And he was like, well, you got to make money. And so I'd worked at another snow cone stand. I'd learned everything about it. And I was like, I think I can do this. He had closed his down. And so that was kind of like the beginning of it. And so I found an old snow cone stand that was for sale. I bought it and then just created Josh's. And it was a very slow kind of like we created it. So we can jump super into the weeds. But I've told this story and I'm sure you can find it all over the internet. But I'm happy to retell as much of it as you want to hear, or if you want to jump into other things. But 19, Josh's Snow Shack is birth, and then the rest is kind of like.
Well, but how did it go from like paying for a wedding and getting life started that way to being what? How many locations?
Yeah, no. Well, so we do about 50 to 150 events a month. Okay. So a month. Like yeah. No, just for about 8 months.
Okay.
So when we get to the peak of it, we'll be doing like in April, we'll do 150 events. So events are a huge thing. So that's why that number gets really big.
Yeah.
But we operate yearly about 11 locations, and then we have 2 trucks that go around. So we have about 13 kind of places you can get it. And then, of course, we do all these small little pop-up events for.
But like, do you have like 70 of employees?
Yeah, 70 employees. Yeah. That is the 70 number. Yeah. So in June, we'll have 70 people on payroll. And it is crazy because they're all like high school and college students.
Yeah, but they're right where you were when you started.
100%. I mean, like, and it's one of those things where it's like, the question is like, how did we get from, trying to buy a wedding ring to, 70 employees? And the best way to say it is that like the beauty of Josh's Snow Shack was that I was able to grow both as a person and as an entrepreneur as that business grew.
Yeah.
So as I was going through personal growing pains, the business is going through personal growing pains. Or as I kind of can't figure out like, how do I get from here to there? It's like, it was all part of that. So it was almost like the perfect storm to grow a business in a very healthy way. Because it wasn't too big for me. Until I was like ready for it,
But like when was the switch? When did the switch happen in your brain of like one shack to where?
So the switch of like this could be a real thing. So I went to college and then I started grad school at OSU, and I remember like had an opening day at 91st and Memorial, and I'm sitting in a Panera Bread there and I'm looking at a line. It's like an hour wait to get a snow cone. And I'm like sitting there, and we only had 3 locations at that time. And I remember watching that line like just go slow. I'm like, if I were in there, we'd probably go 30%, 40% faster, which means I make that much more money. At the same time, I'm doing a final for management information systems, which is basically like building a massive Excel spreadsheet. But it's like an 8-hour exam because I'm not very good at Excel. So I was like, man, I have to build everything has to be perfect. So I'm literally trying to build this model in Excel while watching this. And I'm like, the thing is not so, and so in that moment, I was like, no, actually, that thing can make me a lot of money. And even if I graduate, which I did eventually, get my master's, but I was like, even then, like, I think if I open like 6 more of these, then like I'm pretty good. And so,
Been sitting in a banana.
yeah, sitting in there, and I had that kind of like epiphany. And so I was like, okay. So then we went kind of full send on like, no, we're gonna open more. And then we just opened 1 or 2 every year for the next few years. And we kind of settled at like 10. And it was like, that's a healthy place.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got to a place where I was like, that's healthy. I don't have to work a ton. My work-life balance is awesome. And then yeah, that's kind of how we got there.
And then at some point, it merged from being more than just a snow shack to all of these events. People were wanting them at weddings.
Yeah, so that was probably in like year 5 or 4. We had getting these requests, and the first one was a wedding, and these people were just diehard Josh's fans.
Yeah.
Can you come to our wedding? And I'm like, sure. And so I go out there with my manager, and I remember like dressing, like I look back at what I was wearing, I was like, that's so embarrassing. But like we had these we would make merch every year. We would sell t-shirts and all that. And so I got a button up, and then I put like one of our t-shirts over it, and it was so bad. But they loved us. It was a good event. And then I remember telling my manager, like, look, I don't like doing events. You take this and run with it. And she kind of like helped grow that.
Yeah.
And was like, this is like, I think you can do more. So then she started that. My wife got involved and started booking all the events. And then we created a system for that. And then it just became and then we bought a snow truck because Guthrie Green started doing food. That was when Guthrie Green launched. And
Yeah.
we're like, we need a food truck. So then we built one of those out, and then it was like, okay, we just kept going. Yeah.
So what were some of the biggest growing pains in those early stages of like even going from 1 location to 2 locations and then obviously beyond that? Because I've heard that there's like kind of those plateaus of like, okay, up to 3, it's pretty good, but then it's like a huge thing to add. But maybe it's different for snow.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's a similar thing. Like I think the similar one is like coffee shops too. It's like it's really hard to make a lot of money with 1 or 2 snow cone stands. And I think it's really hard to make a lot of money with 1 or 2 coffee shops. And it's like, and I think the reason is like you have to get to that scale where you're doing such little numbers. I mean, early days, we were talking about pricing yesterday, and I was like, when we started this thing, it was like $1, $1.50, $2, and $3 or something like that. And it was like, that's all. And it was all cash. We had no credit card. And so now when you're looking at like a snow cone costing for the biggest, our smallest one now is going to be $2. I'm like, that's still so cheap. So cheap, right? But in my mind, I'm like, that's still too expensive. Like I think of it as like it should be this novelty thing that you can just get, every day. But to get from 2 to 4 to 6 to 10 and all that, like I think the hardest part it was back to that personal growth. Like me as an entrepreneur, like I'm mediocre at best. I was fortunate to have a really good friend who was like, Josh, like, why are you doing everything? So like I would work at one location when we only had 3. I'd work at one location, and then I would be like, okay, I'm taking a lunch break. I go work at another location because I was I wanted it to be perfect.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be like the best snow cone you ever had. And I was like, the only way to do that is if I'm there. And so I would be one, the other. I would just work all the time. And it was always like, it's 150 days. I can do anything for 150 days. And so, yeah. So it was like one of those things where I was like, and then about year 5 or so, I had this buddy who just was like, what if you thought about this a little differently? And then I was like, oh, okay. And he kind of helped me see a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And that was, hiring more people. We always have a very small team, and it was very, very tight knit. And so some of like that about Josh's is very like wistful to me, where I'm like, man, those were the good old days. Yeah, because it was like me and like 20 other high school and college students, and me and my wife were like 23, and it was like we just would all go longboarding together. We'd go like play, go see movie premieres, and we'd have Christmas parties, and it would be like just this tight knit group.
Yeah.
So, but now it's a little bit different.
On the leadership side of things, how has it transitioned? Because while you are still only 25, how has it transitioned from being like in the same age demographic as the people you're employing as to now it's probably not so much
totally different. Yeah, I mean, I have a 16-year-old now, or 15. She'll be 16 in a month. But I'm like that. I think for me, the about 29, 30, like around there, I was like, oh man, this gap is a little bit big, because like I would work with these kids, and like I mean, it's so crazy. I mean, I got kids now who are like 30 something, 33, 34, 35 who worked for me.
Yeah.
And they'll move off. I mean, one's in Dubai, one's living, in DC. And like these were people who were tight with us. One's in Boston. It's like, and if they come back to Tulsa, most of the time they'll be like, hey, let's grab coffee. And so like that to me is like those people are kind of similar in my
Right.
demographic. Now, when my daughter's 15, all her friends are working, and I'm like, now that's more like daughter, and kids. So it's like I still feel like I have that relationship where I can kind of be, and I'm a soccer coach and I coach kids, so I'm still coach to a lot of people. So I'm okay with that
Yeah.
relationship. But there was definitely a time where I was like, this gap is not as it's too big.
Yeah.
So then I had to hire people who were like my managers, and they
Right.
were the 20 somethings. They were
Right.
like the camp counselor college students.
Yeah.
Like they'd get that experience.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like replacing that part of me with people, and then I could just sew into like 10 college students.
Right.
And that was for about 8 years we ran it that way.
Yeah.
Where I would
creating levels.
Exactly. Where I would just be like, these are my 8 to 10 people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take them out to breakfast every week. We're gonna do that. And then what we would do is they perform really well. Then we take them all on a trip in December. So we took them to Universal Studios. We took them snowboarding. I mean, like,
Yeah.
take those 10 to a special experience.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of employers are doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a very, like, I look back, especially with all the pains of this, like, this is a very, Courts and Commons is a massive,
Yeah.
massive undertaking. And it has like stretched me in ways I did not know I could stretch. And I look back, sometimes I'm like, man, that was a really easy business to do really well. But it's all good.
Yeah. Well, talking about Courts and Commons, we talked about Josh's Snow Cone Shack, how that was going. I mean, killing it.
Yeah.
Where did this come in play?
So it was one of those things where like it was probably 6 years in or so, maybe 4, and I came across a book called Start With Why, and it's written by this author Simon Sinek. He's one of my favorite authors, but the thesis of the book is basically like people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so when you think of like Apple, and their why is stated as we create innovative products that challenge the status quo. So their why has nothing to do with the best technology,
Yeah.
the best software. It has nothing to do with computers. It's just challenge the status quo, innovative products. So I read that and I remember like having this moment where I was like, oh, Josh's Snow Shack isn't about snow cones. It's about creating summer. And so then it became very explicit to every employee, like, you are here to create summer. That's it. Like, I don't need you to make the best snow cone in the world. I would love you to do that. That's part of it as well. But I need you to make sure that you embody summer, which means that when people come up, you give them an experience that's very summer. So when people think of summer in Tulsa, they can't help be like, oh yeah, Josh's Snow Shack, of course.
100%.
It's synonymous, right?
100%.
So that was very, very intentional on about year 4 or 5. So as I continued that, like our why kind of just became like, we just want to create great summer memories for Tulsa. So that's what's on our website. That's what we tell the people. That's on our cups. We do custom cups or anything like that. So then as I grew, like part of like the human journey of like loving Tulsa, loving that, like, that's why I wake up every morning, is to create these experiences for people. Then it kind of became this where I'm like, people find community over a few things, like for the history of mankind. And one of those things is food. Like we will always find community at the table. And so I was like, I love food halls. Anytime I go to a city, I go visit whichever the coolest food hall is. And so I was like, Tulsa needs more of that. We have Mother Road Market and it's downtown. Like that's all we got.
Right.
And so I was like, well, South Tulsa has really no local and they don't have a food hall.
Yeah.
Well, that's number 1. Number 2 is I kind of got into pickleball and I'm not like a pro. Like I just like to play. It's fun. But the thing I love most about pickleball is that it reiterates that kind of community element, in which I say this like I don't know where else in the world you can be in the same, small little situation where it's me, my 11-year-old, and a Division 1 athlete and a CEO of a large corporation, all in the same court.
Yeah.
And he's 60 or 70, or she's 70 years old. And
Yeah.
CEO, and we're all playing, laughing, having a good time. And like that community moment is kind of what I've seen with pickleball. And I say that because like in that moment, my 10-year-old who's like wants to be a professional soccer player is playing with the kid who's playing in college. And he's like, how to get there. And then I'm an entrepreneur talking to a CEO of a bigger company. And it's like all this kind of like, it's like a petri dish of like community. And so I've seen that through pickleball in a number of ways, from people coming who now their friend group, their travel group is their pickleball
Yeah.
group. You see that. And so that community plus the food community where I'm like, that's needed.
Right.
And so leveraging like my reason for living is like to create experiences for people. With that, I'm like, that's where community's found. I'm a big community guy. And I'm like, this makes sense. We should do this. Tulsa needs this. And so that's where this came from, was that desire to create community.
All of these things going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, like when you were talking about like what you're really trying to give people is not just like a snow cone, not just even a game of pickleball.
Yeah.
Like, because that's 100, I was going to bring that up, is just the fact of like, yes, you created businesses, but like you created brands, which I feel like is stronger.
Yeah.
A brand is something that like, it has its own personality. It has a reputation, and it has memory that creates experiences. And so I think for both, like, I know we haven't gotten too much in Quartz and Commons, but I feel like for both, there's like this brand that every time you see it, it makes you feel something.
Yeah.
Like when you see the logo, when you see the colors, it makes you feel something, makes you mentally go somewhere. And so I think that is really smart about both brands.
Yeah, and then that might be a little accidental, like you fall into it. Like I am very, what's the word? My wife is like, I used to say like I'm artistic, and she's like, no, you're creative. Like you're not artistic. Artists can do things. Like you can throw things at an artist to do a thing. So just being creative is like where the brands come from. But all of that, I think, is like a marriage of like me saying, hey. So for instance, Josh Juarez is a perfect example. Like when I created that brand, I was like, it was just going to be called Josh Snow Shack because I was working at that old snow gun stand. I was 16, and one of my buddies was on the phone with his mom, and she was like, where are you? And he was like, well, we're at that snow gun stand. Josh is the one he works at. Josh's Snow Shack. And it was called Tropical Snow. But I was like, I heard that. I'm like, if I ever open one, that's what's going to be called. And so that's how that came about. But then it's like what the brand became was because we had really good employees who caught a glimpse of the vision of like, this is who we are. They had a great time working there. They created a great time for people. And then even with the new, like we rebranded probably 5 years ago for Josh's Snow Shack. And the artist that did the rebrand was an old employee who worked for me like when he was like 15, 16, 17. So it's like he's part of that as well. So when it comes to Quartz and Commons, it's another kind of similar one where it's like I had an idea. We were fortunate to link up with some really great artists, Brethren Design Group, and they helped take like, guys, this is what I'm seeing. We workshopped it, and then randomly one day I was thinking of like we had like 20 names for this place. And the first one was like the local, which is so cliche. But I wanted to make it the local because I was like, I want all local food, all local beer, all local spirits, I want it to be all local. Well, it's too cliche. So then one day we're thinking, they give us like 20 names, and I'm processing, and I'm actually like in church, and I'm like, I get this like House of Commons, like think of like British Parliament or something like that, the House of Commons. And like the Commons, like that'd be cool. And then I was like, court. And then it was like, boom, Quartz and Commons. I called.
Was that on the list?
No, it wasn't on the list. It wasn't on the list. It was on the list. We had narrowed it down to like 3. One was like Rally Club. One was, I can't remember what the other one was, but it was multiple. And I called them like, guys, I got it. And they were like, what is it? And it's 2 brothers. And I was like, Quartz and Commons. And they go, and one of them was like, that embodies, that's everything, like that is it. That's it. And so, so then we kind of talked through it, and then so they came up with the logo, the design, all that, and so it was a joint effort. Yeah. And then all the people that work here make it that brand. Right. So sorry that was long, but there you go.
But the thing is too, so you're into you're good at building brands. You're creative. So not only did you create, obviously the name Quartz and Commons and the brand with help, but like am I wrong? Every restaurant you also
were part of. Yeah. So that's a whole nother thing. Like so. Each restaurant, when we were doing this, we had talked to 3 or 4 groups, food groups and things like that, local companies. And they're like, we want to do it. And we're like, sweet. But we couldn't get their timeline to sync up with our building timeline. And we couldn't get their design plan to sync up. We're like, hey, we need your architecture plans. So we kind of came to a standstill. So then we were like, what if we just got some people from other big food groups and pulled them in and was like, hey, what if we just create our own food group? Yeah. And so through that journey, it was like, okay, we got a chef involved, and then we created a food group that owns these different brands.
Okay.
So in those different brands, I was the one being like, okay, and I did come up with every name
Yeah.
and every design.
Every
Yeah.
is very unique.
Yeah.
And the design look like when you look at it, it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And that what's cool about that is that like this is the creative element where it's like I can go there and be like, we knew we wanted to have sourdough pizza because there's not any sourdough pizza anywhere. And I was like, the sourdough pizza rises overnight. So I remember we were talking a few different names. I'm like, I think it's that. So then I moonrise sourdough, great. I would throw that to an artist in Costa Rica actually who designed the actual brand. And then he would come back and throw it. And then I'd be like, tweak this, and then boom. So I did that with each one of these.
Yeah.
And then with the food within it, I'm a foodie. So we had chefs and they'd come to me and we'd talk. And I'd be like, let's tweak this. And then they would make it.
Was this like your dream to be like, get all these?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like I realized through this journey, like what I'm good at and what I'm really bad at.
Yeah.
And I think like, I knew I was bad at a lot of things, but the thing I think I'm really good at is that creative element and creating brands. And then everything else, I'm just kind of subpar at. So, if I can get people to come to this place and love it and fall in love with these brands and fall in love with this place, then we'll be good. And then one day maybe I'll just be a brand guy. I just help people create their brands.
So originally the plan was to have already established
third parties,
companies
100%.
and do that. But the thing with all of these, they could go off
100%. Yes.
their own.
They're all independently ran in a way that is like, if that needs to be franchised, you could franchise that one. So Moonrise is one that like, if we found the right location, it would do a really good job being its own brand. Because like I already know how to wrap that up with these darts and with that, but I have to get this place really, really successful first. So
well, I think that's just so smart. I like this some of the things like I just think that is really smart. Like because of what it could be. Like, it's not done growing. It's not done evolving.
Yeah, 100%. That's the goal. Yeah, thank you. Well, and now I mean, like it's funny because I think like if you come 30,000 feet and you look at this place and you look at what we've done, it's like what you're feeling as I think a similar emotion that a lot of people feel. But it's like where I'm at, I'm in the weeds.
Yeah.
I'm like in the pressure cooker where I'm like every dollar matters.
Yeah.
Every day matters. And so I'm trying really hard to take more of a 30,000 foot, like it's going to get there. We're going to be okay. Like, but
well, it's a balance. You have to have both because you have to have one. If you don't have that larger viewpoint, it feels like you could just give up at any time. If you don't have the other viewpoint, then it's all hopes and dreams.
Yes, 100%. You need that balance for sure.
So after nearly 2 decades in business, what has been the hardest lesson you've learned overall?
I think just recently, like the advice I give and the advice that I need to listen to more is that like you have people in your corner who probably know a little bit. And like when those people speak, you need to listen really, really closely and you need to actually like take their advice.
Yeah.
I think like for me, I don't ask for help very easily. Like I'm very independent in a lot of ways. And like I'm those are my weaknesses is that like I just don't ask for help. And there's a lot of things in this project that had I leaned into people who were experts, who I like they're my friends, where I'm like, why did I not go to them and be like, hey, can you just tell me what to do here? And then when they told me to actually listen, so that's really the big piece of advice is that like if you're going out to do something, I think a lot of times entrepreneurs they want to guard their thing. It's like don't put your pearls before swine type of deal. And I think that's like really to be honest, like an immature thought. The more mature thought is that like people love me, they care about me, they want to see me succeed. So if I throw this to them and they think it's crap, it might be crap. Or it might just be like, I need to tweak it and refine it a little bit so that they can stand behind it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that I give advice to young entrepreneurs. Like get the people that you actually care about and admit all your insecurities, admit all your flaws, admit all the things that you're scared of, and then ask for their help and take their advice.
Yeah, that's hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard. Because and doing something on your own, you're like, but what if they hate it?
Right.
And it's so weird. It's so weird because as an entrepreneur, you're almost like, well, then I'm like, what if they hate it, but I'm still going to do it for the whole world to see? And I'm like, why don't you just vet this with these people first?
Or it might be like, well, they won't get it.
That's true. And then you're going to feel like I've wasted all this time. I've wasted all this effort. And it's like, it's worth leaning into.
Right.
Sure.
Right. So every business owner has a moment where something just didn't work the way they had hoped.
Yeah.
What's been one of your biggest flops?
I think, had you asked me this question like a year ago, I would be hard pressed. I think like the hardest flop, like historically, well, I'll say pre this project. How's that? So pre this project, we did a couple things. One, I tried to get in some like real estate and I tried to do this flip. And long story short, it could have been really, really bad. And there's a podcast that 36 Degrees North over there.
Yeah.
They used to do, and they called it the F word, and it was like failure. And there's a 45-minute episode on that flop. So you can go find that podcast somewhere. Yeah, go find that one. But that was a big one. And then we did this concept called what do we call it? Josh's Mix. And it was basically we would take a bunch of fruit and juices and fresh ingredients and we would blend it up and then we'd pour it into a mold and we'd freeze it. And then once it was frozen, we'd shave it down with a different kind of ice shaver. So you're getting like ribbons of real fruit, real juices, and it was freaking delicious. We did it.
Like eat it like ice cream.
Yeah, you eat it like ice cream. It was like it's kind of like I think they do it like in some different Asian countries. It's really popular. And like and if you did with cream in it, then it became really creamy, almost like ice cream. But it was like this like ribbons of snow, of fruit snow. And so we did that on Brookside, like more like 43rd in Peoria, so not quite Brookside, but over there. And it did okay, and it was a cool thing. And the people that loved it. Like they were diehards. I mean, people still every probably month bring it back, put it in quotes and comments. But that was a flop in the sense that like it was such a good brand, it was such a good item, a product, the people loved it. It just we couldn't make it win, couldn't make it succeed.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a flop, and maybe brought back in the right context, it'd be okay.
Say like it could all be about timing too.
Timing's one of those things, and I think like I bring that one up because sometimes, believe it or not, and this is me being very, very vulnerable, so this is the only place I've ever said this, is that like sometimes I like this place reminds me of that experience. That place was like break even all the time. Like we didn't make any money on it, but it was stressful to me. Like I was like, oh, this thing broke or whatever, and it was an in-store place. It wasn't a shack.
Yeah.
So like all these other headaches, and then this, I'm like there's always something here, and it's never as busy as I want it to be, and it's like those types of emotions. So it's been a fight for me because I'm like, I know this will get there. It's just hard because I'm like, I remember that one. I'm like, please don't be. This is way bigger scale. It needs to win.
Well, and the thing too is like because this is so multifaceted. Sports and Comments is not just pickleball. It's not just restaurant. Like every single restaurant, it's just so much buy-in.
It is,
but like so much room for complete wins.
For sure. And if people, I think I say this all the time, like as soon as we get South Tulsa and the rest of Tulsa to realize, number one, this is a place you can come and just eat, which we're getting every day. People who just don't even play pickleball, they come and eat, which is great. As soon as we get that, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah.
And then as soon as every corporation realizes like, oh, this is our place for our corporate event, then we're solid. Because I mean, we've hosted Quick Trip, I don't know, a dozen times, Stilty a dozen times. They love it.
Yeah.
Once a corporation comes, they're hooked.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we just need every corporation doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what do people assume about owning a business that isn't actually true?
Oh, that you're not employed by anybody. Like everyone's like, it must be good to be your own boss. Like you're not your own boss. You have literally like 100,000 bosses. You have Susie who lives down the road who's like, I hate this thing about your business. Like, oh yes, coach, I got you, boss. Yep, let me change that. And then you got your employees who are like, I don't like my compensation. Like, okay, boss, I'll change that for you. It's like that's the thing I think every entrepreneur should know is that like you owning your own business just means you went from having one boss to hundreds of thousands of bosses.
That's good. That's really good.
You can quote me on that. Put it on my tombstone. It's great.
So good. So if you could go back and give 2005 version of yourself one piece of advice before opening that first shack, what would it be?
Gosh, I have like 100 pieces of advice. The one piece of advice I would say is that like try your hardest to do the best thing for the business the best way you can right away. And I say that because within the snow cone industry, if you go to any snow cone stand across the country, it's probably like 99% of them are going to be like single owned, one shack, makeshifty as can be. Like they're going to, I mean, you might have a guy up there just holding a fan, you know, like it's just everything's very makeshifty because you can. It's like super high margin. So as long as you keep your labor under control, then like you're going to make some money. And so there's you can hit a lot of easy buttons, Band-Aids and snow cones, which kind of framed me to become like a Band-Aid guy where I'm like, okay, that's kind of broken. Okay, just put a Band-Aid on it. We got it fixed. And I think in hindsight, I would have been like, no, just build it right from the very beginning. And you'll have a lot less headaches long term. Short term, it's gonna cost you a little more.
Right.
And you're gonna have a few more headaches. Long term, you're gonna sleep better at night.
Good.
So
before we close, I always ask this: what is one thing you don't have fully figured out yet, but you're choosing to build through it anyway?
One thing I don't have fully figured out yet. You love these one things. I have 100 things. So I'm gonna say the one thing right now as it relates to Quartz. It's gonna be about Quartz and Commons, and that is like the I mean, I'll give you a couple. Number one, marketing, and I would say marketing and sales. Like we're struggling there. Only because it's like with Josh's, it was word of mouth blew us up, and then we're on the corner. We're like the most prime real estate everywhere we are, and I didn't realize how valuable that is. So with this place, like we're tucked back a little bit, and you have to know about it to come here. And so I'm figuring that piece out where it's like, how do we get everyone who would want to come here to know it's here?
Yeah.
That's what I'm figuring out. And then number two is the organization of the team. There's, like you said, a lot of moving parts. And so it's really imperative that we have strong people in every role.
Yeah.
And so I'm figuring that out right now as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Because how many employees do you have just about at Quartz?
Like 30.
Still. But like, is that 30? How many is working a day?
I mean, in a day, probably right now during kind of our slower season, 10. Once we get to summer, we'll have to probably go up to like 50 employees, and we'll probably have 20 working in a day. But like at Josh's Snow Shack, on any given day, we'll have 50 people working a day. Like, because you'll have 2 per shift at each location, and then you have people running the ice and picking up the water. I mean, that's a machine. Yeah.
So for people who want to visit Josh's Snow Shack, which I hear is opening early this year.
Yeah, no, we open April. We open usually the first Friday in April, but this one, it's the first Friday. It's right before Easter, so we're gonna wait till the next Friday, which is April 10th.
So is it later? So it's not early?
It's pretty much standard.
Okay.
Yeah. So first or second week of April, we always open. And we announced that 2 days ago. So that one's opening the Friday, April 10th or 11th.
So when this podcast comes out, it'll be like a week away.
Oh,
so you can be
in
ready.
1 week, yes. And you want like when we open Josh's, we do free t-shirts to the first 100 people. We do these promo cups that you can fill up all summer. We do like a bunch of promos and stuff like that.
It's good to be.
It's good to be. Yeah. And then a week away. So when will this air? On like April 1st. Okay, yeah. So we will have just had our 1-year birthday celebration here.
Yes.
And it went great. Hopefully it was so great. It was so good. Yeah. So yeah.
So where can people follow Josh's Snow Shack and Quartz and Commons online?
Yeah, so Instagram, both of those, TikTok, both of those. I think YouTube Shorts, like we have both those. Twitter, both of those, or X, both of those. Yeah, that's it. Everywhere. You can follow us everywhere. Yeah, and then if you Google either of those companies, they should be the top. You should just be able to go to the website.
Quartz and Commons is located right at 121st and Memorial.
Correct.
So
yeah. If you know it's here, it's on the northwest corner. Yeah.
To me, I can't miss it.
Yeah. Once you come here, you won't miss it. Yeah.
So that is it for this session of the Back Office. If this conversation gave you clarity, a new angle, or even just the reminder that you're not the only one navigating this, then it did its job. Take what's useful, apply it, move on it, because no one has it fully figured out, but we are building anyway. And if you found this valuable, share it with another operator who's building, and you can always hang out in between sessions with us online at Signify Marketing Social, wherever you want to be. I'm Dalayna Dillon, and I'll meet you back here next time.